So, which one of you thought the Vancouver Canucks were going to go as far as they did in last season's playoffs? You. Liars. I jest. They're a talented team, but I wasn't even sure for certain they were going to beat Minnesota. Then they upset the former Stanley Cup champions and the Blues, and then almost took Vegas all the way as well. So, I mean, Demko really kind of dragged them through that last bit. I mean, what was it, 3 games he played? He had 2 goals on 130 shots against him. He was fantastic. Can he keep it up, though? More on him on a second. Let's talk about the offseason grades, and let's start with key arrivals. Beginning with Nate Schmidt, who the Canucks stole from the Vegas Golden Knights. He signed to a 5-year deal worth $5.95 million. He's definitely an upgrade over Tanev. He's a left shot but plays the right side. I could see him playing with Hughes in an offensive situation or, being a shutdown role with Edler. We'll see. And then either, Myers plays with one of those guys, depending. Now, Braden Holtby signed as a UFA from the Washington Capitals. The goaltender signed for 2 years at $4.3 million. Now, this is kind of the way I thought they might go because of the big contracts they had coming up to Hughes and Pettersson in a year. And, the amount of money they have tied into their bottom 6, with Eriksson, Beagle, and Roussel, and not to mention Luongo, and so on and so forth. So they signed Holtby for about $2 million less than Markstrom, and for 4 less, I want to say, years. It's not bad. Yeah, he's been declining in the past few years, but he's always, increased his quality of play in the playoffs. He's got a Stanley Cup ring, and maybe a change of scenery will help him rediscover his game again. I mean, he's still young. He's like 31 years old. Don't forget, Corey Crawford had a couple of bad seasons and bounced back this past one with a .917 save percentage, and he's now with the Devils, and he's going to play with Blackwood. That could be fun for New Jersey fans. Now, let's talk about key departures real quick here. Jacob Markstrom, of course, left to Calgary, as did defenseman right shot Chris Tanev, as did depth forward left winger Josh Levo. Now, hopefully, I know he had bad luck with injuries the past couple of seasons after coming from Toronto. But, he's a good depth player. He's got a great shot. Could play that second power play unit, third line. I wish him all the luck on his new team. Troy Stecher signed with Detroit for around $2 million, the right shot defenseman. I thought for sure they would have kept him because of, and maybe bump Myers down to that third pairing and bump Ben, make him like a 7th defenseman. But, I don't know. Tyler Toffoli, of course, was the last big fish who left, the right winger, who was traded for and was scoring on a point-per-game basis during the regular season. Had a pretty good playoffs, too. He's good for 20-plus goals, former Stanley Cup champion, and he's decent defensively as well. They're going to miss him on that right side beside Horvat. That's too bad. I thought they would at least sign one of Markstrom, Tanev, or Toffoli. And they seem to replace, Markstrom and Tanev, but not really Stecher and Toffoli. But we'll talk about the prospects who might be able to step in a little bit later. Let's talk about the players they re-signed, starting with Jake Virtanen, who's the right winger who signed a 2-year deal worth $2.25 million. Is this good? Is this bad? Well, I mean, he's been of a first-round kind of bust, right? Back in 2014, 6th overall. But his point production has been increasing every year. Last season was his biggest in 69 games, 18 goals, 36 assists, -4. In the playoffs, he kind of fizzled in 16 games, 2 goals, 3 points, +2. But if he can score any between 18 and 25 goals, I think this is a good contract. He might be, playing on that second line, on the right wing beside Horvat or on the third line beside Gaudette. We'll see how that goes. Next up, there's Adam Gaudette, the centerman, who they re-signed for 1 year at $950,000. During the regular season, he started to take away that job from, Sutter. Of course, Sutter being injured a lot of the time too. But he kind of disappeared a bit in the playoffs. So this is sort of a prove-it deal. You would think most insiders say that he will start at the center position on the third line, and not Sutter, who might be looking at fourth line duties on the wing. But of course, Suter is a much better face-off guy, by the way. Moving on, Tyler Mutt, who they re-signed, the left winger, to 2 years, $1.225 million. Usually he's that fourth line winger who can move around the bottom six anyways. He has never really put up much points at all. 34 games, 8 points, -10. But the playoffs, he was great. He was everywhere, wasn't he? Just hitting people and stuff, and even scoring some goals. 17 games, 4 goals, 5 points, 0 in the plus-minus category. So I think that was a decent signing for him. Hopefully he continues to improve, and he's still very young too. Yeah, well, youngish, 25. His birthday will be in March. Moving along here, let's talk about some rookies, starting with the forwards who could crack the lineup. Now, I know everyone wants to talk about Vasily Podolskin, their number 1 ranked prospect, but he can't play because he's under contract in the KHL. He's not even signed yet. They can't sign him till he finishes there, which, with COVID-19, who knows when it might finish. Maybe May, maybe June. If they're lucky, he finishes in time, he could see some games at the tail end of the regular season and even get some action in the playoffs. If you don't know him, he's a right-wing bulldozer who just takes defensemen out on the way to the net. He's good at fighting for pucks. He's fast. He can stick handle real well. The knock on him is a bit of his shot. But anyways, let's talk about next Niels Höglander, who's the left wing, who was picked in the second round 2019, and he's their second-ranked prospect overall. He is going to be in training camp. He just left the SHL in Sweden, and he went out with a bang too. Had like 20 penalty minutes for roughing, fighting, elbowing, just everything you could throw at the in the kitchen sink. So he brings creativeness, speed, sandpaper. Problem is that a lot of the left side is spoken for, but maybe he bumps someone else to the right, like Pearson on the second line or Roussel on the third, and he plays on the left there. But it'll be exciting to see how he adapts. Now let's move on to talk about Zach McEwen, the centerman who went undrafted but re-signed with them for the next 2 years for $825,000. I'm not sure if he starts. He's a center/right wing. He's 24, just had a birthday in July. In 17 games last season, he had 5 goals, 6 points, +6. Decent, right? 6 games in the playoffs. He had 0 points, was a +1, mostly playing on that fourth line. Tough guy, sandpaper, greasy. If he doesn't start in the lineup, I would think he'd be one of the first ones to jump in. Next up, let's move on to defense here. Let's talk about Olli Juolevi, who almost every insider says should start on that bottom third pairing left-hand side, most likely with Ben on his right playing his offside because he's a left shot. Both of them are. Then that leads me to talk about Brogan Rafferty as well, who's a few years older than Juolevi. He's a right shot. A highly offensive talent who's been playing in the AHL the past few seasons. The knock on him is the way he plays defense. He doesn't pivot well, etc. And I'm thinking there could be a rotation here where, if Rafferty jumps into the bottom pairing, Ben moves back to his natural position on the left and plays with him, or if Juolevi jumps in on the left, Ben moves to the right. We'll see how that works out. Then the last 2 players I wanted to talk about are Jet Wu and Jack Rathbone, ranked both 7th and 8th on their prospect list by the Hockey News. Wu is a right shot, Rathburne's a left shot. I don't see him in the lineup this year, maybe for a drink of water, but it'll make, the earliest might be next season. They'll probably play in the minors for 1 more year, but they're coming up, and I think they all have really a higher ceiling than Rafferty. It's just that he's a few years older and has a lot more experience playing against men. Now, I wanted to talk about sort of my the lineup the way I see things happening, it could probably be Hughes and Schmidt or Edler and Schmidt, and then Myers will play with the other player. Myers now is sort of the only right-handed shot on the team, unless Brogan Rafferty joins the club. So think about that. And then, the bottom pairing we mentioned with Levy, Ben, or Rafferty. The forwards, Miller, Pedersen, Besser, first line, staple probably. Horvat and Pearson. Who plays on that right side? Who replaces Toffoli? Is it Eriksson? Is it Virtanen? We'll see. Third line, center should be Gaudette with Roussel on the left, maybe Virtanen on the right, maybe Eriksson. And then fourth line, Beagle should be in the middle with Mott on the left, Suter on the right. Suter could also play third line center. Some of the guys on the outside looking in, McEwen, who I think I said who could have a first shot at an open spot. Sven Berchi, I don't think is coming back from the minors. Ferland, what's up with him? He's just one concussion after the other. I think he's on his sixth now. He was recovering after being injured for most of the year, came into the playoffs, got into a fight in his, second game, got, punched, and lo and behold, is concussed again. I'm scared for this guy's health. Never mind if he can play again. So, I don't know, maybe he's on the injured list for the entire season. Now, my profile picks for the Canucks. Best acquisition has got to be Nate Schmidt, right? He was a steal. Sleeper here, I think. Demko is cheating, but I'm going to say it's because, he wasn't added during the offseason, but seeing as how he's kind of found money with how good he played in the playoffs. Could be Gaudette, right? If he improves. The dark horse, Holtby, if he can find his form again. Best bang for the buck, I'm going to say Virtanen. And don't forget about Adam Gaudette, the third line center. How I grade this team, I'm going to give them a C+. You could even give them just a C. I would love to hear from you, especially you Canuck fans, how you grade this team down in the comment section below. And congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Please celebrate by hitting that like and subscribe button. Don't forget that notification bell, which will alert you when my next video comes out. I'll be doing another team. I don't know who that'll be yet. Thank you again, and hey, please be kind to each other out there in this crazy world we're living in, and I'll see you soon.